Good evening, everyone. I'm Susan Drummond, City of Pasco hearing examiner. Today is March 10th, 2021, 6 p.m. We have a fairly busy agenda tonight. There are six items that I will be hearing. The order of procedure on all of them will be the same. We'll hear first from the Planning Department. The Planning Department will provide a summary of the proposal. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to present, and then we'll open up the matter up for public comment. Anyone who has signed in or called in may comment on the proposal. And we are still holding these hearings remotely, although I understand there are a few members of the public in the chambers this evening. So I've been keeping the record open for at least a couple of days in case there was anyone who had technical difficulty calling in, wanted to comment, and was not able to do so. And all of these, except for these two zoning recommendations, I make the final decisions within 10 business days at the close of the record. The zoning matters, the time frame is the same, but it's a recommendation to the council, with the city council making the final decision. Are there any procedural questions from anyone?
Madam Examiner, I don't know if you received a updated agenda, but the original one had 2 item Cs.
I saw that. I just changed it to a D, so I think it's still 6 items, correct?
Yes, D, E, F.
Okay. Yes, and I did notice that. I didn't receive the updated agenda, but I think it's the same. So I think, any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, we'll go ahead and proceed then with matter A. This is a special permit for Poland and Sons, matter number SB 2021-001. This is actually a continuance from last month on February 10, where I initially heard the matter, but then continued it to this evening to correct a public notice issue. I have reviewed the updated staff report on that. And then there were a number of documents that were submitted between the hearing and now. There was a question from the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Nation and a response from DAHP, Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, the application, and then the permits from both 2011 and 1999, which consist of minutes from the Planning Commission and Council, and then the DNS. I think those are all the additional items that I received in addition to the original staff report with its attachments and the updated staff report. I don't know that I need a full kind of summary of the proposal, although I think, Mr. Adams, if you're presenting, I leave that to you, since you did present, I think, last time on this.
Yes, and just for the audience's information, I will be presenting items A through E, and then Rick will be presenting item F.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams. Why don't I go ahead and swear you in? If you could state your name for the record.
Jeff Adams.
And you swear under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Item SP 2021-001, Ray Poland and Sons, Inc. is a renewal of a resource recovery facility special permit in I-1 light industrial zoning district. I received a phone call today asking if anything had changed in the last 20 years or since the last permit renewal, and I informed the caller that there was nothing new or interesting, and so I think that's probably the same response I would give to the viewing audience today. Any questions?
No, I do not have questions. I think last time I did have a couple, but those were addressed with the additional documents which were submitted. Is the applicant online or present in the hearing room?
Madam Examiner, I do not see the applicant listed here tonight.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. And I did not actually I didn't have questions specific to the applicant. I assume they have no issues with the proposed conditions that are outlined in the staff report, conditions 1 through 9. But let's go ahead and open this up for public comment. Is there anyone who has signed in or is present in the hearing room who would like to comment on this proposal? Mr. White, I'm not seeing anyone or hearing anyone. Do you see anything to the contrary?
I do not.
Okay. Let the record reflect that there is not anyone who has signed in or is present who wish to comment on this proposal. As mentioned earlier, I'll keep the record open on most of these, probably for a couple days. So on this one, we'll do that through March 12th, just in case there was anyone who did want to comment and had difficulty with technical issues. So close of business 5 p.m. Friday, the 12th, and then any comments will be forwarded to me and a decision will be out within 10 business days. Are there any procedural questions from anyone?
No.
Okay. All right. We will move to the next agenda item. This is a special permit request for the Guzman Daycare, matter number SP 2021-003, and I did review the staff report and attachments on this proposal. Mr. Adams, you remain sworn in. You may proceed if you wish. Thank
you, Madam Examiner. This parcel is addressed at 4417 West Sylvester Street, tax parcel 119564125. The property is currently zoned RS12 and is approximately a half an acre. Applicant wishes to operate a daycare facility. They plan to add 500 square feet to an existing 2,000 square foot house to serve a daycare use. That addition is not an immediate request, but is part of the application. The daycare facility, or daycare facilities in general, are considered community service facilities level 1, and as such, they require review through the special permit process. West Sylvester Street is a major east-west arterial. The site has good transportation access, including a Ben Franklin transit stop located in front of the property. The code requires lot and street frontage improvements, including curb, gutter, sidewalk, landscaping, and utility installation in conjunction with any new construction. The Pasco Municipal Code requires 1 parking space for each employee and 1 space per 6 children, which would bring the total required spaces to 11. And as you can see on their site plan, they have plans to add parking in that on that lot. And that's the basic summary of the application.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adams. I do not have questions for you on this. Is the applicant present?
Madam Examiner, I do not see the applicant. I believe they have signed in a listen-only mode.
Okay, can we, okay. Are we able to unmute them?
They've used a different link that does not allow speaking.
Okay. Well, it sounds like they may be able to hear me, and I assume this would be Ms. Guzman, who has called in, but does not have audio. I do not have any questions for you, and I'm assuming there are no concerns with the proposed conditions. But if there's anything that you wanted to add, again, I'll keep the record open for a couple days on this. So I think at this point, what I'll do is open this up for public comment. Is there anyone who is present who wishes to comment on this proposal? Mr. White, I'm not seeing anyone, but is that?
That's my, that's what I see also, no one present.
Okay. Let the record reflect that no one has indicated a desire to comment on this proposal this evening, but again, I'm keeping the record open on this through close of business Friday, March 12th. Those comments should go to the planning department. They'll be forwarded on to me and the decision will be out so within 10 business days. So let's move on to item C. This is a special permit request proposed by Pasco Haven, matter number SP 2021-002. I reviewed the staff report and attached exhibits on this, and then there were several comments that came in after the staff report, including a letter from applicant's counsel, which provided detail on the decision-making criteria, and that is appreciated. And then there were a number of, I think, mostly supporting comments from a number of groups, some affordable housing groups, but a variety of groups that were largely in support of the proposal. Mr. Adams, did you want to go ahead and summarize this housing project?
Sure. So this is SP 2021-002. The applicant is John R. Pilcher in conjunction with Jonathan Malhan with the Catholic Housing Services of Eastern Washington. Their application is for Pasco Haven, which is a 60-unit low-barrier affordable housing project. This is a vacant parcel located on the southeast corner of West Lewis Street and South 20th Avenue. The property is currently zoned I1, C1, and C3. You can see the picture there. The red outline with the hash is the actual property. The gray area is the I1. The pink is C1, and then the red is C3 zoning. And the total parcel area is approximately 1.5 acres. The applicant is proposing to develop and operate a 4-story, 60-unit multifamily affordable housing project to, and I quote, provide affordable, permanent, supportive housing for people who have experienced chronic homelessness and or have significant barriers to successful housing, unquote. The proposed facility is classified as a community service facility level 2 as defined in PMC 25.15.050 and as such requires review via the special permit process. Catholic Housing Services of Eastern Washington has submitted a mitigation plan for this project, and it includes on-site support, including on-site access to services, including peer support, dual licensed behavioral health and substance abuse counselors, fresh food options, case management, and then partnerships with other organizations that will be providing primary health care, employment and support, and other supports. There will be up to 3 property management maintenance team members who are trained, equipped to manage and respond to resident needs. 24/7 access to an emergency call number in case challenges arise when staff are not on site. They have also incorporated design elements into the building itself, including trauma-informed design elements supporting resident wellness. These include wider hallways, more open spaces, and increased natural lighting. Residents and authorized staff and partners have a key fob electronic lock access control to the building, and those fobs restrict access to the floor the resident lives in and or lives on in common areas. They also have internet-enabled security cameras for remote monitoring planned, a perimeter fence that would reduce unauthorized access to the property and manage resident access to the property and surrounding neighborhood. The south entrance is designed to help control the outside entrance impacts on the community. Limited access is planned for the sidewalk along West Lewis Street. They have incorporated crime prevention through environmental design, or CPTED, including in their lighting, landscape, and floor plans. They also have specific resident expectations. Property managers will have quarterly unit inspections, regular engagement with residents. They plan on responding quickly and consistently in person and in writing to issues, and collaborating with on-site support staff to develop resident-focused solutions to help change behaviors. Programming is designed to support residents in healing from substance abuse disorders and to manage behaviors relative to addictions. Residents will be required to sign a lease agreement, including expectations for conduct within 2 miles of the site. And I guess this is a standard thing with this organization with these projects, including unit cleanliness, visitor requirements, quiet hours, the prohibition of uses of marijuana and illegal drugs, and a commitment to a good neighbor agreement. They will also be working closely with local police departments, including providing them anytime site access. They have a 3-day eviction notice for serious personal or property crimes, again, within that 2-mile radius of the site, on site and within 2 miles, and also a risk to tenancy agreement in lieu of eviction for less serious or repeated violations of the house rules. The agreements mandate participation in additional services and support as conditions of residency. Site amenities will include on-site staff to schedule regular residential or resident activities, including monthly resident town hall meetings, fishing trips, cooking classes, pizza nights, and many other unique activities. Design elements also, I'm sorry, what was I saying? They will also design elements to support positive resident activities, which may include basketball court, recreation room, community gardens, sidewalks on both of the north. Oh, that's something else. And there was a discussion about moving the sidewalks along the north and west sides of the property to the owner's control, so they can have control over access for those areas. And that's a pretty concise summary, I think, of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I do not have any questions. Is the applicant present?
Yes, they are, Madam Examiner, and I'm waiting to see a hand rise to see who wants to present. I see Mr. Hume, and that is it so far, so I will make sure he's unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hume, I believe you're counsel for the applicant. Were you speaking for them tonight?
This is Jonathan Mallahan with Catholic Charities of Eastern Washington. If I may introduce this project and then turn it over to Mr. Hume.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't I swear you in if you're going to offer evidence? If you could state your name for the record.
Jonathan Mallahan.
And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, we're pleased to present this application for a special use permit in support of Pasco Haven. This 60-unit permanent supportive housing facility is designed to help people improve their lives and really respect and affirm the dignity of the human individual. We believe that we've effectively mitigated impacts on the surrounding neighborhood through our physical design, but also through our strong operational plan. We've done outreach to neighbors to understand their concerns and have made changes to our design to incorporate those concerns. For example, moving the entrance of the building to be central to the property rather than on a street front. We believe that that will help us mitigate for unwanted loitering of pedestrians or people in front of the building that could create a visual nuisance for our neighbors. We have a strong approach at Catholic Charities, and part of our corporate values are to honor our neighbors, and we take that very seriously. So our property staff are trained to engage with neighbors and with residents to include expectations of neighborhood conduct in our lease agreements and in our behavioral management. We work with residents to develop tools that they need to be successful and stabilize in their lives. I think it's an important point to call out that many of the residents who will make Pasco Haven their home are currently housed across the street in a form of temporary or emergency housing, and so they're in the neighborhood. So this will be a more effective way to house high needs individuals and provide them with the support on site that will help them improve their wellness. We do not provide services to people who are not residents. So this will not become a service stop for people who are not part of the Pasco Haven community. That's a significant mitigation to avoid unnecessary traffic and just driving people into the neighborhood that might otherwise disrupt the community around us. I think that I would close this by saying that I wanted to make sure it's on the record. Our mitigation plan notes that we do not allow drugs on our property. We also want to be clear that if someone is struggling with substance use disorder, we follow landlord-tenant law, and that in and of itself is not something that they are evicted for. We approach someone's disease through treatment and care, and that's why we have staff on site who are trained to help people overcome that illness. At the same time, we do manage behaviors. So if someone's addiction is leading them to behaviors that are not conducive to a safe environment, we are equipped and well experienced in needing to remove them from the housing community, evict them if necessary, and work with them to find a form of housing that is more appropriate to meet their needs.
You mentioned housing across the street. Is that inside a building or?
It's a motel.
Motel. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I don't have any other questions for you. Oh, were there any concerns with any other proposed conditions? Sounds like not, but just checking.
No, we want to verify that the bus stop is needed by the local transportation agency. We have some information that suggests that they don't anticipate the need for that stop at this time, and that there's an adjacent stop that is appropriate to serve this property.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else?
I'll defer to Todd.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Kim, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Good evening. Are you offering legal argument or testimony also?
No testimony per se. I just wanted to sort of organize the discussion a little bit. I think around the main kind of land use issue, which is related to the variance request. But I did want to hit real quickly on the elements of the special use permit. First of all, for the record, Todd Hume, 601 West Main, Suite 714, Spokane, Washington, 99201. I submitted earlier this afternoon a letter, and I won't go through all of that sort of targets the elements of a special use permit.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I did take a look at that.
So as you know, a special use permit is akin to a conditional use permit. It's an allowed use in the zone, subject to identifying those issues that need to be mitigated. And as I have reviewed the record, there don't appear to be any issues that stand out from the agencies with jurisdiction or from the staff that suggest that there's any sort of incongruous use between this use, the surrounding uses that require mitigation. And the staff hasn't asked for any of that mitigation either. So to that extent, we appreciate the staff's work, and we're largely in favor and in support of the staff report. The bus stop that you just talked about, we do have and I think maybe we'll tomorrow or the next day, if the record stays open on this, maybe that's an opportunity for us to submit a couple more documents. There is an email that we received, excuse me, within the last couple of days from the local transportation agency stating that they did not want to have another bus stop there, that they thought the bus stop they had was adequate. And the staff's report seems to be sort of targeting what appears to be sort of an unsupported idea that the residents won't have cars, therefore they'll need a bus stop right in front of the facility. So I don't think there's enough evidence in the record to suggest that. And then I think what we will support will support the suggestion that those improvements aren't needed on the project at this time. Let me address the variance. It's a strange piece of property. So it's 1.5 acres, and it has 3 different zones that cut through it. And near as we can tell, at one point in time, there was a short plat that aggregated a couple of different parcels together but maintain the existing zoning. So you've got an industrial zone and then two different commercial zones, all three of which have their own height limitations or not. The industrial zone doesn't have a height limitation. And so the way the site was designed, you'll notice from taking a look at the architect's rendering, it's really tucked up against the intersection, sort of the north west corner of the site. And that takes advantage of the area of the property that is zoned industrial. It does not have a height limitation. The height of the design is 55 feet, and that design does dip down. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think we have the architect on the phone as well that can verify this. I believe it's about 10 feet into that C1 zoning. And so there's a corresponding variance request to allow for a height variance for that portion of the building that sits in the C1 zone. And I don't need to go through all those elements of the variance in the hearing with you. Again, we've submitted those in writing. And I know you're familiar with them. The Pasco code has sort of an interesting twist. Yeah, I to be honest, I wasn't exactly sure what to make of it. It does appear as though,
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
yeah, as though you can grant this by special use permit and there's not a requirement for a variance application. And then on the other hand, there's another provision that says, well, here are the elements. There's only 3 elements in Pasco's code. Oftentimes there are 5 or 6 or 7. But we did address those in the letter as well. So I think,
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I think it's best to go through both sets of criteria. So I'm glad you did that. And I would have asked actually for some more detail but I think this will suffice for what I need.
okay. Yeah, so I think high level, looking at the site, you know, the city has, every jurisdiction has under the GMA an obligation to provide, you know, a stock of affordable housing. Pasco has designated their affordable housing opportunities throughout the city, subject to a special use permit. When you look at the site and the potential impacts associated with the use of the site for this use around the surrounding neighborhood, it appears to be a pretty ideal location for this kind of a use. And there's obviously nothing in the record that suggests otherwise. So there's really no testimony to rely on to suggest this wouldn't be a good spot for this particular use. So I think the sort of the intellectual challenge you have is sort of understanding that variance piece. It seems to make sense when you consider there's going to be a 55-foot tall building immediately, you know, adjacent. And so we'd ask that you grant the variance as well as the special use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Hume. Is there anything further from the applicant at this time?
Not that I'm aware of, unless you have questions about the site design for the architect.
I do not at this point. I do not.
Okay.
So at
Thank
this
you. That
point,
concludes-
and if concerns arise, the applicant will have an opportunity to address those. Is there anyone who is either present in the hearing room or has called in who would like to testify on this proposal?
There was a Sharice Warner, Madam Examiner, signed in. He or she has not indicated that they are wishing to speak at this time, though.
Okay. It looks like that individual did call in, but I'm not sure that they're actually, certainly there's not a hand raised, so. Is there anyone else? Mr. White, was that the only individual you were aware of?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Well, as noted, we'll keep the record open through close of business on Friday. That would be March 12th, 5 p.m. If there is anyone who did want to comment on this proposal and wasn't able to do so this evening. Mr. Adams, I do have a question for you. This is on the bus stop condition, number 6. Wanted to get your take on that. It sounded like from what the applicant said that the transit authority may not need it at this location, but I didn't, and there was a reference to an email, but that wasn't in I hadn't seen the email yet.
I did not receive a copy of the email from the transit authority. However, I heard secondhand that their argument was that they don't have a transit route to that point, which is true. The route goes from the west to 20th Avenue, and then it turns left and goes up 20th Avenue without actually touching the site. However, I'm also aware that the routes change. In fact, I know that the routes have changed just for COVID. I also know that, according to the applicant, most of the people that will live in these units will not have cars of their own, and so they will be dependent upon public transit. I also know that the speed limit on West Lewis Street is 45 miles an hour up to 20th Avenue, and then it reduces to 35 at after 20th Avenue as you're proceeding east. I also know that people go through that intersection at the full 45 miles an hour because the transition sign is past that property, and so that's going to be a very dangerous place for a bus to stop if the route were to be changed in the near future. So a turn pocket would be a wise investment for future transit.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there may be a need for a transit stop at this location, but I'd like to hear more on that. And if the transit authority has a position on that, that of course would be helpful to me. I'm wondering if I maybe should keep the record open just a little bit longer so that consultation with transit authority can happen. Maybe through close of business on Tuesday, March 16. And I guess I'd ask the applicant and planning department if they have any comments on that. Or anything further on that.
This is Todd Hume. I think we'd appreciate that opportunity. We can reach out to them to see if there's sort of a more definitive statement they can provide.
Okay, yeah, that certainly would be helpful. Thank you. Mr. Adams, anything further from you?
Nope.
At this point? Okay. All right, I think those are all my questions. As noted, we're keeping the record open through Tuesday, March 16, 5 p.m. Within any comments should go to the planning department. Those will be forwarded on to me, and then a decision will be out within 10 business days. Are there any procedural questions before we move on to the next agenda item?
Not that I know of.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I've got a question.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
This is Todd Hume again. Is the purpose of holding the record open for any comments generally to come in, or is it open till 3/16?
Yeah, it's open for any comments, and I realize sometimes for applicants, you might have a comment that comes in that you feel has not been addressed, or that's kind of a new comment. And if that's the case and you need additional time to respond to that, just request it. And typically I would grant a request along those lines. I'm assuming that's your question?
Yeah, it will be the time to respond to anything new that popped up.
Yeah, if there's anything new, typically there's not. And in this case, when you don't, I didn't, where we didn't have comment this evening, there may not actually be any, but yes, it is open. So, and who knows, maybe someone did have difficulty calling in. So, we'll see what gets submitted by Tuesday close of business. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. I think with that, we will move on to matter D. This is a rezone request, matter number 2020-001, proposed by J&J Kelly Construction. Mr. Adams, you may proceed if you like.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. For clarification, this is actually a zoning determination for a property that has not been annexed into the city. And so this would be like a pre-zoning or a zoning once it is annexed
Yeah,
into the city.
I had a question on that because the criteria are the same as for a zoning recommendation. And then the council, of course, makes the final call on that, on what the zoning will be for the area. But are there any other nuances on that I should be aware of?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Nothing substantial. So this is so this is 5 properties that are proposed for annexation. As shown on the map there, the primary property is a little over 13 acres. It is slated for subdivision at some future time after annexation. The other properties, one of them has a annexation agreement, and then the other ones, we have received letters from 2 owners who are in favor of the annex or the rezone.
Yeah, and I
Two of
should
the
note for
5.
the record, I received, I think, 3 comments that you sent over today. Some in support, some not.
Right, so we have 2 in favor and 2 against, and I think 2, the ones that are against are not actually in that rezone or the zoning designation area. And they also had other concerns which don't need to be addressed at this time. The total area proposed for annexation is 17.5 acres. Again, 5 parcels included in that. They are currently zoned RS20, which is 20,000 square foot lot minimum size. The request is for R1 zoning, which is 7,200 square foot minimum lot sizes. Land annexed within the Riverview area typically adopts the current county zoning designation for the parcel. However, with the availability of sewer, more density may be contemplated. So those are kind of the highlights for this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Is the applicant online or in the hearing room?
Yes, Madam Examiner, he is.
Good evening. If you could state your name for the record.
Jeff Kelly.
Thank you. And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you. Is there anything that you wanted to add to the staff summary of your proposal?
Well, it's obvious around Tri-Cities that we are running out of affordable homes. I'm a builder and developer, and one of the ways to make the homes more affordable is to create smaller lots. And so we are hoping to get the 7,200 square foot zoning to help address that issue.
Okay. All right, I do not have any questions for you, so unless you have anything further, we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. So at this point, I'll open this up for comment. Is there anyone who has signed in online or is in the hearing room who would like to testify this evening on this proposal?
There is, Madam Examiner, Mr. Bachman, I believe. And it appears he is self-muted. There's his mic is open now.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Bachman. If you could state your name for the record.
My name is Russell Bachman.
And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you. And just to check the spelling on your name, it's Bachman, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. You may proceed with any comments or concerns that you have with the proposal.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to say I am a resident in the proposed annexation area, bordered on two sides of my property by the development here. I want to say that I'm not opposed to annexation into the city, but I am opposed to the R1 zoning that is being proposed for this development. This is an area with half-acre lots or bigger everywhere around this development. And the reason I moved here, the reason many of my neighbors moved here, is to be in a lower density area. I've lived here almost 20 years. I think putting 5 or 6 residences per acre versus the 2 residences per acre, the way I believe it is zoned currently, is not appropriate. It's forcing density into an area that is not developed that way. I just want to say that I strongly object to developing this with that level of density. And I would propose that the 2 residences per acre would be a better fit in this area of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bachman. You know, I should clarify for the record that the annexation itself, that's not before me, but definitely the zoning question is before me. Is there anyone else who wished to testify on the proposal?
Not seeing any, Madam Examiner.
Okay. Well, I don't see any hands raised either, and I'm not hearing anyone. So let the record reflect there's not anyone else who wished to testify this evening, but I did receive the public comments which came in on this proposal. And as with the other proposals, we'll keep the record open on this. I think 2 days would be sufficient. So through close of business, so 5 p.m. on Friday, March 12th, and then anyone who wanted to submit comments should provide that to the planning department, and the department will then forward those comments on to me. Are there any procedural questions from anyone before we proceed to the next matter?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we've concluded with matter D. We are now moving to matter E. This is the WSDOT noise wall, matter number 2020-005.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. The application here is for an exemption from the City of Pasco noise ordinance to complete a sound wall project. The property is located in the Washington State Department of Transportation right-of-way, located to the east of the northbound lanes of US 395 between milepost 19.07 and 19.33. You can see it on the map. It's just as you're crossing the Blue Bridge into Pasco, going north, and to the east there you can see Flamingo Village mobile home park. There's no zoning designated for this area because it is WSDOT right of way. And we're talking about approximately 144 or 1,444 linear feet of wall. And the staging area is approximately 5,200 square feet, or about 1/10 of an acre. Applicant, Washington State Department of Transportation, is planning to construct a noise wall to the east of the northbound lane to mitigate existing traffic noise levels along this section of the highway for adjacent homes in the Flamingo Village Mobile Home Park. The majority of the work is scheduled for the night hours in order to reduce impacts to the traveling public during high volume travel hours. Equipment that they expect to include or to use includes the following: excavator, backhoe, front loader, flatbed truck, crane, auger, utility trucks, and various handheld, operated tools and traffic control vehicles. The required equipment would create noise around 22 decibels in excess of the daytime Pasco noise limit, according to our rough calculations. WashDOT estimates the project will take 50 work days to complete. No detours are anticipated, but single lane closures may be needed periodically. WashDOT will require the awarded contractor to develop a noise management plan, and that plan will be shared with the city of Pasco for review. WashDOT will consider building additional noise management options into the contract, including providing a 24-hour contact for noise concerns, prohibiting tailgate banging, the use of noise shields and noise blankets around the equipment. The sound wall is needed to reduce a long-standing freeway noise issue at the trailer park. And so that's a good summary of the report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams. Yeah, I did have a question. I'm wondering if really this should be characterized as a noise ordinance exception. And I should use perhaps those criteria in Title IX, that would be 9.130.060, rather than the Title 25 variance criteria. No need, if you're not certain on the answer, no need to address that now, but that's an issue that kind of came up when I was looking at the staff report that I had a question on. Let's see. So at this point, I think we'll move to the applicant. Is the applicant present, either online or in the hearing room?
Yes, I am online. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Good evening. If you could state your name for the record.
My name is Bill Sorial.
And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you. And is the spelling on your name, that's S-A-U-R-I-O-L?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Is there anything that you wanted to add to staff's summary of your proposal?
Well, I think the staff accurately describes the project, and I really appreciate the efforts of Mr. Adams through this process. I do want to mention that at the time of your public notice, which was approximately 2 weeks ago, we also distributed a flyer to the residents of the Flamingo Mobile Home Park to give them an idea of what to be expected from a construction standpoint. And we received one comment in favor of the project. The WashDOT is also lead for the State Environmental Policy Act, and we issued that and put that in the paper and issued that to property owners in the vicinity. And we also received one comment during that period, and that was from the city of Pasco, saying that we are required to get a noise variance.
And by the way, I think I do have the notice that that DOT sent out. It looks like it went out in both English and Spanish.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It did. As staff mentioned, this is a 50-day, approximately 50-day working days. The estimate start date is going to be a spring of 22 and finish sometime in the summer. Given that this is a virtual hearing, we have a lot of opportunity to bring other experts into this hearing. So there's several folks in the hearing room or online that are able to answer any questions that you have or any questions from the public that you might have during this. We have representatives from Federal Highways. Since this is a federally funded project, we follow federal.
Oops. Looks like the sound just dropped out for a second.
I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
That was interesting. We have representatives from Federal Highways. This is a federally funded project, and we're following federal standards for the construction of the noise wall. We also have folks from our headquarters cultural resource program and our noise program for in attendance. We have members from my staff, my environmental staff. We also have the project engineer and his staff, and we have the assistant regional administrator and the design manager for the WashDOT region. So there's a lot of folks in the audience here. So if you have any questions, or if any of the public has questions, I'd be happy to answer those or defer to some of the experts in the crowd.
Yeah, I doubt I need to hear from everyone. But I guess I did have just a few clarifications. One, as I'd mentioned to staff, the criteria that looks like would really apply to this is probably that criteria in the Pasco Municipal Code in Title 9, specifically 9.130.060. So I'm leaning toward that's probably the criteria that I'll use in reviewing that. You may not have looked at it, but you might take a look after the hearing. If there's any follow-up on that, feel free to provide that, as I'll keep the record open on this one as I have on the other matters. It sounds like from my reading of the proposal, this provides a long-term benefit to the immediate community there in terms, of buffering sound from the highway. But it sounds like, so there'll be nighttime construction though for about 50 days, I think is what you had said. And there are some conditions in there to help alleviate the noise during that time frame. Condition 7 says consider. Seems like it would make sense to just make that mandatory rather than consider. And I think you would need, I mean, you'll probably be doing this anyway, the 24-hour contact and the tailgate, that prohibition on tailgate banging, use of noise shields, blankets around equipment. I assume those types, well, I know those types of measures would help with some of the sound on this. But are there any other follow-up comments on measures to kind of alleviate the sound impact from the nighttime construction? Because that period of time might present some difficulties for the nearby residents.
Besides the plan that the contractor is going to develop for forms of noise abatement, if we do get calls from the public, because we are going to provide a 24-hour number,
Okay.
Things that we have done in the past are provide earplugs and other things, fairly simple devices to help people manage the noise. I will say that their noise generation from this type of work is not an extremely loud generation. The highway itself is already very noisy in itself,
and may blend in with that noise.
It should blend in, correct?
Yeah, to a degree.
Correct.
Yeah. So the way I understand sound is it's not exponential. It's not you have some sound and it's not like it may be more continuous. But it's the way it adds on to each anyway. Well, and you've provided a chart with the decibel levels and so forth. So
correct.
Okay. I think that was my primary question. Anything else before we open this up for comment?
I do not have anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So at this point, we'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the hearing room or who has called in who would like to comment on this proposal? Mr. White, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Do you see anyone or aware of anyone who had indicated a wish to comment?
No, I do not.
Okay, all right. So I do not have any, let the record reflect that there was no one who has called in or is in the hearing room who would like to comment, but I'll keep the record open through Friday, March 12th, 5 p.m. And anyone who wishes to comment should provide those comments to the planning department. They will forward them on to me. I think I've already asked all the questions that I have on this. Is there anything further from either the applicant or the planning department?
Nothing from the applicant.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Mr. Fario. And Mr. Adams, I assume nothing further from you.
No.
Okay. All right, we will move on to the final agenda item for this evening. This is the rezone matter number 2021-001. It is proposed by Mr. Malhan, rezone property from C1 to R4. And I think Mr. White, you were going to present on this one, is that correct?
Yes, I am, Madam Examiner, and I have not been sworn in.
Okay, yeah, so why don't we go ahead and do that? If you could state your name for the record,
Rick White,
and you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
yes, I do.
Thank you.
This rezone request, the current zoning designation of this property is C1, which is Pasco's, generally the retail zoning district. The proposed zone change would be from C1 retail zoning to R4, which is Pasco's high density zoning district. The property contains a little bit less than 2.5 acres, and as you can tell, it's located on the northeast corner of Road 68 and Argent here in Pasco. There were 2 written comments. Before I forget, I want to make sure that those were forwarded to you, Madam Examiner. 2 written comments in opposition. From the staff report, there are some mixed land uses in this vicinity. The Pasco Fire Department station is located directly to the north of the site. There's a dental clinic directly east. There's some mixed land uses, generally commercial in nature, located west. And then to the south is a large undeveloped tract of land. Let me get to the right slide here.
And by the way, I did receive, there were two comments that I did receive with the staff report materials.
Okay, thank you. There were 2, the comprehensive plan designation for the site is mixed residential commercial, which is Pasco's most varied land use designation. It allows an assortment of residential densities and retail zoning as well. So the proposal is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The city has processed a mitigated determination of non-significance for the site. The mitigation measures are the performance of a cultural survey, a traffic impact analysis, and the appropriate frontage improvements on both Road 68 and Argent. The findings and conclusions support a recommendation of approval for this rezone request. And I think with that, unless there are additional questions from you, Madam Examiner, I'll just stop there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. No, I do not have questions for you at this time. Is the applicant online or in the hearing room?
The applicant is here. He has indicated that he does want to address council, or you, Madam Examiner.
Yeah. Sounds like that must be Mr. Malhan then?
I am.
If you can, thank you.
Yes, it is.
If you could state your name for the record.
It's Rajiv Malhan.
And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay, we are planning on putting an apartment building on this corner. And I believe that this is in line with the comprehensive plan for the city of Pasco. And we will comply those 3 requirements mentioned by Mr. White. We'll get the traffic study done and also the cultural study done and any other requirement that comes in our way.
Thank you, Mr. Malhan. I do not have any questions for you at this time.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point, we'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone either in the hearing room or who has called in who would like to testify on this proposal?
Seeing none, Madam Examiner, unless Mr. Scott Williams is wishing to testify, there's no indication that he does. or Mr. Bachman, who is still indicated as signing into the meeting. However, neither have raised their hands or indicated a need to testify.
Mr. Buckman, Mr. Williams, I assume no comment, as I'm not seeing a hand raised either, but speak up if you wish to provide comment. Okay, I am not hearing any, so let the record reflect that there is not anyone who wished to provide testimony on this proposal this evening, but as this, with the other proposals, we'll keep the record open through close of business on Fridays, March 12th. Which is 5 p.m. and comments should go to the planning department and they will be forwarded on to me. I do not have any other questions, but is there anything further from the applicant or the planning department?
No, there's not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that was our last agenda item. Mr. Adams, Mr. White, is there anything else that I need to address this evening?
No, there is not. I did want to point out, Ms. Drummond, that the council will be considering amendments to our Pasco Municipal Code regarding SEPA appeals this Monday. I know you've spoken with Kerr Ferguson Law about this, and we had a good workshop meeting, and they understand the need for the code revisions and look forward to getting that approved.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It'll be good to have the updates to the SEPA regulations made. So that's good to hear. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Thank you all. We are adjourned.